The debate remains as to who or what is ultimately at fault here in the Charleston shooting. Dylan Roof was able to buy a gun even though he had a previous drug possession arrest. And some gun owners believe guns everywhere would be a deterrence, even in churches and schools. Gun rights advocate Jerry Henry lobbied for passage of the Safe Carry Protection Act, or what critics call the Guns Everywhere bill in Georgia. It went into effect on July 1st, 2014, and made it legal for gun permit holders to carry firearms in more places like houses of worship if religious leaders opted in. Henry says firearms are not to blame for the Charleston shooting, but the shooter himself. He joins us now from Atlanta. Jerry, do you think that if any members of that church had actually been carrying a weapon, that might have avoided this?
Well, I believe that it would have had a different outcome, and I believe there would have been less people killed.
Even though if members of the church had no training? I mean, the gun carry law that you advocate doesn't require anybody to have any basic training if they want to take their weapon into a church or a school. How is that helpful?
Well, it's helpful because the fact that people who do carry firearms are trained with them. There's just no state mandated training here in Georgia. Most of the people that I know spend an awful lot of time at the range training themselves to use those firearms. And the fact that there would be one of those people in there, plus the fact that someone was in that church that might be armed would probably be a deterrent to someone like that as well.
But why does there have to be an obligation on somebody in a church or in a school to go ahead and get a weapon and go through the training in order to make sure that they can protect their house of worship?
Well, there is no obligation. There is the right for you to do that. We don't advocate that everybody carry a firearm. We advocate for your right to do so if you want to protect yourself. If you want to be left defenseless, then by all means, that's your choice.
But you would acknowledge that having people armed with guns hasn't always worked. I'm going to give you the case from Lakewood, Washington in 2009. 4 police officers, all trained with firearms. They were all killed by a gunman, even though they had weapons on them.
Well, that's correct, they were, but I believe they were kind of ambushed at the same time. Now, if he had walked in there amongst them, that might have been a different story. But you're right, it doesn't always help, but it does change the odds, and it gives someone a better chance for that to happen.
Doesn't it also increase the chances, though, of an innocent person being wounded or killed? I mean, that was the case in the Gabby Giffords shooting. There was somebody who actually had a weapon at that event in Arizona, and had he gone through with his impulse to shoot, he would have killed somebody who had nothing to do with the shooting.
Well, those things do happen. However, as a matter of fact, if you go to New York City, there were policemen up there that shot, I believe, 9 innocent bystanders up there trying to get one person. Those things do happen. But once again, if I have the right to defend myself, then I have the right to act responsibly.
But isn't the responsible thing for society, and perhaps the easier thing, is to try to go through and find out, okay, who are the folks like yourself, Jerry Henry, who should have weapons, who are responsible with it, and who are the folks who, I don't know, like Dylan Roof, had a drug possession, and maybe society ought to keep him from having access to a firearm?
Well, the keeping Dylan Roof from getting a firearm was the job of the South Carolina police forces. They should have notified Nix that he was a drug user and he would not have been able to get one. There are background checks. He passed the background check.
Do you think that somebody who espouses racist views ought to be able to access weapons?
I don't think the racist views have anything to do with it. The people who are going to pull these kind of stunts off, going to do these kind of things, are people who are mean at heart and have no soul.
But if somebody's espousing racist views in a manifesto like Dylan Roof, shouldn't that say, wait a second, this guy clearly has the kind of hatred that you're talking about. Let's make sure that he doesn't have access to firearms.
Well, if you're going to, which the NSA is trying to do right now, if you want to spy on everyone and you find somebody doing that, then you can do what you want to with that information. An awful lot of times you'll find that people who talk like that don't really feel that way. They're just trying to stir things up.
Jerry Henry is Executive Director of GeorgiaCarry.org. Jerry, thanks for coming on the program. We always appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.